Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. It is so wonderful to be here this wonderful Friday afternoon and to spend a magnificent hour together learning Torah and preparing for the Seder. Yay. This is the second class in the series. Next week, we'll have another one. And before I begin, I just want you to know that I think probably the most published piece of literature is the Haggadah. Certainly in Jewish literature, probably in any type of literature, the same Haggadah being written, printed. Every year you have new Haggadahs. And every year I try to buy at least one new Haggadah. So I want to just share with you a few from my collection so that you can see and get ideas. Okay, so this is my Hebrew one. This is, like for me, the Bible of Haggadah, because this gives you the background, it gives you the sources, it gives you, if you want to know the meaning behind everything in the Haggadah, but this is all in Hebrew. They may have this in English. I haven't seen it yet in English, but this is by Eliyahu Kitov, and this is just a magnificent piece of work. All of his work is amazing. If you're familiar with there's a book called about the Jewish calendar. I don't remember the name of the book, but either way, this is what Leil Seder, right? Leil Pesach, Seder Leil Pesach. Okay, so this is book number 1, Bible. Okay, next I have a most of you are familiar with the Little Medrash Says. Yeah. Right. We've done a series on that a whole year. They have a Little Medrash Says Haggadah. Ooh, this is incredible. You get the rest of the story here, okay? Then, of course, I have this one. This one we spoke about last week, the Youth Haggadah. Okay, of course I have that. Now, one of my new favorites from previous years is the Haggadah with Answers. Okay, the Haggadah with Answers. Excellent Haggadah. You know, we ask a lot of questions on the Seder. You want to get answers. I have a new book about this year that I just bought yesterday. Rabbi Yisachar Frand on the Haggadah, incredible stories. Another book with incredible stories for your Pesach Seder is Touched by Our Story, the story of the Jewish people, right? And this is the Haggadah by Rabbi Yechiel Spiro. Rabbi Schwab on Haggadah, amazing, absolutely amazing. And then my newest one that I just got this year, it's been out for a few years, I think. I don't know, for some reason I feel that... So for some reason, I feel like this is the Haggadah that I bought once before, but someone else took it, and I had to buy it again, and then someone else took it because it's a good one. So this is called the Haggadah. The answer is Haggadah. Right? Again, we have tons of questions, and we're going to try to sprinkle through many of the different commentaries in all of these books throughout our journey of the Haggadah. So we don't have any time to waste. So let's begin with the Seder plate. Now, I want to share with you an amazing story. The Spoiler Zeda. I heard a story from the Spoiler Zeda, who was one of the great sages, one of the Hasidic masters, and he met once with a school teacher. I heard the story yesterday, from Rabbi Yaakov Wogelanter. I hope I'm repeating it with proper detail. If there's anything wrong with the story, it's my fault. I heard it. I was inspired. I said, this is what everyone needs to hear tomorrow. The Spoiler Zeda once met a school teacher, a Rabbi in a school, in a cheder, in a Jewish school, and he heard one of the kids repeating what they learned about the Seder, and they said, what we say in Yiddish, what I learned to say in Yiddish, Tata Laban, my dear father, I want to. We have to rush home from shul, right? Here's the start. When the tata came home from shul, when the father comes home from shul, he makes kiddush right away, right? So that the children should not sleep in. It's a known part of the song in the preparation of my children, my little children. They know this. When the father comes home from shul, he makes kiddush right away, so that the children don't fall asleep. And that's where the teacher ended his class. He stopped right there, and he didn't continue with the rest of that song or with the rest of that teaching. And the rest of the teaching is so that the children don't fall asleep, and they ask the questions of Manishtana. How can you leave that out? The Spoiler Zeda couldn't figure it out. How can you leave out that's such an integral part of this saying? How can you leave out this part of the song, of the teaching? So the next day he meets this teacher, this Rabbi from this Seder, and he asks him, he says, I heard one of your students, I asked him what he learned about the Seder, and this is what he said. He said, when the father comes home from shul, he should make Kiddush right away. And he stopped right there. He said, yeah, what do they need to talk about then? They should ask all the questions. Like, hey, come on, it's okay. As long as the kids don't sleep in, you know. He said, do you know what this means? He said, do you know what this tradition really is? He says, who's the father sitting by the Seder? He says, the father sitting by the Seder is the Almighty sitting by the Seder. When the father comes to the Seder and he sees all his children prepared the Seder, he should recognize, what does Kiddush means? What does Kiddush mean? Kiddush means holy. He should see that his children are holy. Look, they're all prepared for the Seder. Look how great your children are. And then with that, you have to go into the next part of that teaching, which is, and they should ask questions. God, have mercy on your people. They shouldn't think that they're living in a world which has no questions. They should always ask the question, because it's very easy to get comfortable and not realize that we're in exile. You know, where we go to, where do we go? Neiman Marcus? Where do we go? We go to Neiman Marcus, and we go shopping here and shopping there, and we buy a house and we buy a car and we close a couple of deals, and we have, life is good. Life is good, and we're asking no more questions. No. We have to ask the questions. We have to realize that we're in exile. We were in exile in Egypt. We're in exile today as well. Now, it's a different type of exile, right? But look, what more of a reminder do we need than having 11 people murdered in Israel in the past week from terrorists? From terrorists, to remind us that we're not free people. We're not living in paradise. We're living in a world that is a challenge, in a world that is a crisis, in a world that is supposed to be reminding us again and again and again that we're not free people. We're not living in a perfect world. And as much as we'll try with this equality and all this political nonsense of trying to make the world more pristine, we see that we become a lot worse with all of these new. Okay, so now it's important to remember this. It's important to remember that, you know, one of the things when Rabbi Wolbe mentioned this yesterday, I realized why we have Elijah's cup at the Seder. We have a special cup for each one of us. We're going to talk about that. Everyone has to have a cup filled with wine. Who fills it for you? Who fills up your cup of wine? Someone else, right? Why? Because you're royalty. You don't fill up your own glass. You fill up someone else's. Someone else fills up yours. Royalty. Royalty. But also we fill up Elijah's cup. Why do we fill up Elijah's cup? So the Shabbos before Pesach, what do we say? Hine anochi shalach lachem es Eliyahu hanavi. Here, behold, I'm sending you Elijah the prophet to tell you Beheshiv lev avos al banim, that the parents are going to learn from their children, meaning the children at the Seder. And the children will ask their parents, V'leivanim al avosam. And that will bring, meaning will come a time where we will start realizing that it's the parents and the children and the children and the parents, that together they're going to be able to ask those questions. Together they're going to realize that we are not free people. The children will suddenly realize, why do they hate us? Why does someone randomly run around with an M16 and start murdering Jewish people? What did we do to them already? The answer is, we're going to take a break now to welcome the great sage from Jerusalem. The great sage from Jerusalem, Dovi Wolbe. This is my son Dovi.
Here's Dovey, all grown up. Dovey, all grown up.
Yes.
We're gonna widen.
Wow. Great sage from Jerusalem.
The
Yeah.
great sage. The great sage from Jerusalem is here. So there you go. So we're
He's
okay.
got the Wolbe smile.
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. So I started putting together a list of all the things we need to prepare for the Seder. Okay? What do we need to prepare? Number one, wine.
Yeah.
We need to prepare wine. Make sure you have wine. And according to halacha, the halacha tells us if you can afford a nicer wine, buy a nicer wine. We're royalty. Which is we're going to see this dichotomy. We're going to have this conflict of like we're royalty, but we're slaves. But how does this whole work? And we eat matzah, which has absolutely no personality, right? It has no flavor. Well, I love matzah, but especially the burnt matzah, right? So okay, so the first thing is the wine should be red wine, commemorating the blood of the first plague that befell the Egyptians. Okay, so the first thing on your prep list for Pesach, get a nice wine. And if you like Manischewitz, get Manischewitz wine. That's fine. If you like Kedem grape juice, get Kedem grape juice. If you like a nice how do you call it? A nice Merlot, get a nice Merlot or a Cab, whatever it is that's nice. Now, if white wine is better, you enjoy a white wine better, then you can also use a white wine. What many people do is they'll put a little drop of red wine. So, okay. So the first thing to prepare is wine. The second thing, matzos. Everyone should have 3 matzos at minimum for both seders. So that means 6 matzos. 3 matzos for the first Seder, 3 matzos for the second Seder, and we'll see there is an order in how those matzos are organized. We're going to have 3 matzos, the Kohen, the Levi, and the Yisrael. We have 3 matzos that are going to be in front of us during the Seder, of which we're going to make the hamotzi, of which we're going to eat the meal as well. So what matzahs should we have? So there's matzah, which is called matzah shmura. That means that it's been watched and protected since the cutting of the grain. From when they cut the grain, they make sure that there's no rain that fell on it. They make sure that it's been clean of any type of
Leavening.
Not only leavening, but anything else, any contaminants, anything. There's an amazing story I want to share with you. Okay, there's a matzah bakery in Bnei Brak, in Israel, that they every year buy their wheat from the same farmer. They buy their wheat, and what they like to do is they like to buy all of the grain from one place. They don't want to get from this field, from that field. One guy who has enough for everything that they need for their matzah factory, for their matzah bakery. One year, their farmer didn't have good produce of wheat. He didn't have enough. So they said, you know what, we're going to go someplace else this year. Sure enough, they went. Remember the story, right?
I think
They went and they found a farmer that was right next to the Gaza Strip. And they asked the guy, and the guy's like, well, they said, listen, we'll pay top dollar, but we need it today. And sure enough, he says, fine, so much money today, no problem. They cut all of the wheat. They come out there, they get it all, they package it, and they take it out to Bnei Brak. That same evening, a group of terrorists from Gaza had built a tunnel, and that tunnel was going to come in middle of those wheat stacks. It came. That's where the head of the tunnel was. And when they first built this, there was wheat and wheat stalks all over, and they're going to be invisible, right? And that same day, they cut all the wheat. They come out and they're completely right. And they were, thank God, they probably saved 100 people's lives. But what a miracle! Right? Just an amazing miracle. The miracle of Pesach of the proper performance of a mitzvah. But either way, making sure that we have matzah shmura. And if you look in the supermarket, you'll find that there's shmura matzah. It means that it was watched and protected from the moment it was cut. From the moment it was cut, it's under guard, and they watch over it to make sure that it doesn't become, because once it comes in contact with water, within 18 minutes it's chametz. Okay, so and there's a special, it's called a hidur, which is an extra stringency that it should be hand matzah, not machine matzah. The square ones are machine matzah, that the machine just prints them out. Or we do the hand matzah, and I had the privilege this year when I was in Israel a few weeks ago to go with Dovi, and we went to the matzah bakery where my rabbi makes his matzah, and we were there with him and seeing the whole process. We actually didn't get our hands dirty, we were like, but there were plenty of people in there that probably didn't want us to mix in with their order and how they had things done. But it's amazing. From the minute the water touches the flour, the clock starts, and all the way the process of kneading the dough, all the way to cutting up the little pieces, and each one becomes a matzah. They give it to each different, and they have the rollers there, and they have the ones who make the holes in it. They put it on a piece of wood, goes into the oven, and it's out in probably 12 minutes. So they keep on doing, they have it's an amazing system. If you want after class, I can show you the pictures of each step of the process. Amazing. So we did that, and I actually bought some matzah from that, which I brought back. And I have special matzah, which is hand done. So it's also a mitzvah, special added stringency that it should be also hand matzah. So that's item number 2. Wine, matzah.
I know what's next.
What's next?
Extract.
Well, yes, that's probably it. Yeah, that's right. Tums. That's right. So the next is the ka'ara. The ka'ara is the Seder plate. Seder plate. What is the Seder plate? The Seder plate has on it 6 different items. We're going to talk about each one of those 6 items. Anybody know what's on this Seder plate? Anybody?
You have a paschal lamb,
a lamb shake,
bitter herbs, and eggs, salt water.
Charoset, very good. Okay, so we have any piece of chicken or meat with a bone on it. Okay, any chicken or meat with a bone on it. It should have, again, meat or chicken with a bone, and it should be grilled during the day. You're not allowed to grill at night, right? There's a whole, right? Because of the offering that was on the temple. It shouldn't be confused with being the offering. We don't either eat that at night at the Seder. Okay. Where do you put it? Where do you put it?
Top right.
Top right. Very good. You listened well. Right?
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm also cheating. I have a picture.
Oh, okay. Very good. So very good. Okay, very good. So you put it on the top right. So imagine, anybody know what a segol is? A segol is one of the vowels of the alphabet. It's 3 dots. It's like this. It's a 3 dots. So the Seder is going to be designed, the Seder plate is going to be designed with 3 dots on top and 3 dots beneath it, okay? So there's a total of 6. 2, 1, 2, 1. The upper 3 and the lower 3. Okay, think of it as the Trinity, right? Right, so you have the kosher Trinity, right? So we have the shank bone, okay, the shank bone. And you put it on the top right of the Seder plates. Okay. Next is the egg. Okay. Also, that offering that was brought for the shank bone that we commemorate is an offering of kindness. We always said the right side is kindness. What's the left side? Judgment. The egg is representing a different offering, which was an offering of judgment, which is why it's on the left side, on the upper left side, opposite the shank bone. Okay, so it's a hard-boiled or roasted egg. It's placed on the left side of the upper left side of the Seder plate.
So is that signifying Hashem's left side is judgment?
Yes. It says that when God loves us, he loves us with his right. And when God has to patch us, he patches us with his left. So too parents. We beat our kids up with our left hand. I'm just kidding. Okay. But you just hug them. Just hug them with your right hand, right? All right. So then is maror. Maror is the bitter herbs. So any bitter vegetable is good for that. Any bitter vegetable, you have to make sure that you check them because vegetables are, especially leafy vegetables, are prone to having bugs.
Yeah.
So that's why they actually sell. Anybody knows what bodek means? Bodek means to check. Livdok means to check. We're going to do bedikas chametz, is to look for chametz, to search for chametz. That's what we do the night before Pesach. We have to. So there's a special light that they sell in the stores, in the kosher stores, that is a special light. And if you have, for example, lettuce, you can put the lettuce on that light and you can see right away if there's any insects or any bugs on it. And if there is, it doesn't make it non-kosher. Wash it off, check it again, and see that the bugs are no longer there. It's not a problem. It doesn't mean you have to throw away your food. You don't have to throw away the food. Just wash it off. Don't eat that extra protein. Okay? So where do you put that maror? The maror you place right in the middle beneath the shank bone and the egg. Okay? So now we have the first triplet. Okay, the first set. Yes.
Can you give us some examples of bitter herbs, please? Radishes?
Radish, exactly. Even horseradish, any of those bitter types of even
Parsley?
A lot of people use parsley.
they can use
Yeah.
parsley or you can use, some people use like the base of lettuce, of the romaine lettuce.
Oh,
You talk about the part that's bitter on
The bitter on the bottom,
It's
exactly.
not the green part on
That's
top sweet.
The white
The
part on the
white part
bottom,
is
exactly.
Yeah, it's bitter.
Okay, so many people use that.
Oh, I
Now,
see.
again, there's many different customs, and everyone has a different custom of what they use. For example, for karpas, which we're going to get to, for karpas, there are some people who what they have for karpas is potatoes. That's what I grew up with. There's some, my in-laws, when I went to my in-laws the first year we were married, they had celery. I'm like, what in the world? What? I never saw that before, right? But it's fine. That's their custom. And that's their custom. That's their form of vegetable that they use. It's fine. We use potatoes, which is fine. Potatoes taste much better. Come on, potatoes taste much better. So actually, in our home, we do both of them now. Zahava and I, we do both of them. We do also potato and also celery, or whatever people want. You dip that in the salt water. Okay, we'll get to that soon. Now, next thing is on the right top of the bottom section, okay, the bottom triangle is going to be the charoset. What is charoset? It's any type of ground fruit with nuts, almonds. It could be, you can have pecans, any types of nuts that are ground. The halacha says to also mix some wine and some cinnamon in there. And this is similar to the cement that they were busy with, and the Jewish people were constantly making cement and making everything that was necessary to build those beautiful pyramids in Egypt. And this is also something that you should prepare during the day before Pesach. If you live in New York and you have the luxury of going to the kosher market there, they sell the ready-made salt water, and they sell everything ready-made. You can buy it literally and just put it on your Seder plate. They might even come in the glass that you could just put on, because that's how lazy people have become, right? So you put it, where do you place it? You place it on the bottom half of the Seder plate on the right, upper right, and you put it beneath, it's right beneath the maror. So again, so you have on the top right, you have the shank bone. The top left, you have the egg. In the middle beneath them, you have the maror. And to the right, the bottom right, the southeast of it, right, beneath the shank bone, you have the charoses, right, the charoses. And then we have the karpas. On the left side of it, opposite it, and beneath the egg, you will have the karpas. What is that? Again, that's any type of vegetable, either a potato or some people use carrots or radishes or non-bitter radishes, this is, right? And you put it on the left side. And then you have in the middle, in the bottom, you have what's known as chazeres, which is the leaf of like a leafy, any type of leafy vegetable you can put there. Yeah, put spinach or just a lettuce. So you see a head of romaine.
That's funny.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't have, yes. So some don't, right? That's fine. Mine has all 6 of them.
Yeah.
Mine has all 6 of them. But it's okay if you don't have that. There are different customs that because that is the bottom 3 are rabbinic. The top 3 are biblical. They represent biblical elements of the Seder. The bottom 3 represent the rabbinic elements of the Seder. Okay, so now, just an interesting thing. I'm not into the whole Kabbalistic thing, but the 3 matzos represent Chachma, Bina, and Dat, while the Zroa represents Chesed, the Beitza, the egg, the Shankbone represents Chesed, the Beitza, the egg represents Gevura, the Morah represents Tiferet, the Charoset, Netzach, the Karpas is Hod, and the Chazeres is Yesod, and the whole thing is Malchus, and that is the whole 10 pieces of the Sfirot, the 10 Sfirot. So when you talk to Rabbi Cohn next, you'll tell him Seder plate. Yeah, the whole, yeah. Okay, you can tell him that. Okay, either way. So that is that. So what's that? You're freezing. Okay, I'll make it a little warmer. It's my fault. It's my fault. I did it over here.
No.
It's only 71 degrees. No problem. My pleasure. You want my jacket? I'm a gentleman. It's fine. Okay, good. Okay, so now I wanted to talk about, the other things that we need to prepare. So we prepare also, before Pesach, we prepare the salt water. Anybody have any good recipes for salt water?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking.
Salt.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you put the salt first, or the water first, or the water first, then the salt? Or do you mix it, sprinkle it in a circular motion? Okay, I'm just kidding. Okay, the next thing is candles. Preparing the candles. Now, there are some people who this year, Pesach is the first Seder is Friday night, so we have to light at the beginning of Shabbos. So make sure your candles are ready. Again, the mitzvah of Pesach is to be royalty. That we don't come in like all sweated up. I'm so tired. I'm falling asleep. It should be set up in advance. In fact, the halacha says a very important thing. Excuse me. Halacha says that you should buy beautiful china. Take out that china. It's not only for Thanksgiving, right? It's not only for Shabbos. Pesach night. To use special silverware, you bring out your finest dishware, and you go all out. This is the time where the Jewish people are royalty. Okay, so preparing the candles. There's 2 more things. Is the kosos, all the cups for everyone, so that they can have their kiddush cups, and that you don't need a silver one. You can have a nice glass one. But the idea is that everyone should have their cup ready. We have with our children, everyone, whoever comes, everyone has a glass. Either it be a silver one or a glass one. It's fine. And then the cup of, also make sure that those cups are washed out beforehand, so that at the time of the Seder, you go right into it. You don't have to, mine is dirty. It still has some silver cleaning, polish in there. No. Make sure it's all clean. It's rinsed out. It's ready to go. And additionally, the last thing to prepare before the Seder is the cup of Elijah. And we got last year, my in-laws came and they brought this beautiful, like enormous, like it's like a whole bottle of wine in there. They put a big, enormous glass for Elijah. I mean, how drunk does he want to get? I will tell you the story. Okay, so for those of you online who are watching this later on YouTube or wherever listening on a podcast, please forgive me, and I hope my brother doesn't hear this. But I remember it was after the first Seder. It was the next morning, and we woke up, and my brother is sleeping under the table. Okay, my brother Yaakov was sleeping under the table. Well, he enjoyed some of Elijah's wine. Okay, he thought it was a good idea to drink Elijah's. Right? He wasn't drunk, but he had plenty to drink, and it was
Just fell asleep.
yeah. So that was it was really, really incredible. So we have to have enough wine. Make sure we have enough wine for all the 4 cups of wine for all of our guests to make sure that, okay. So one part that we did not talk about yet, which is even before the day of Pesach, is the night before Pesach, which is going to be Thursday night in 2 weeks, is that we search for chametz. And our sages teach us that not only we're supposed to search for chametz in our house, we're cleaning our house. Thank God we have special help from our housekeeper. As you know, Zahava is not able to do as much as she usually does this year, but cleaning each bedroom, making sure, the kids sometimes they hide their candies and they put their other stuff in it. Suddenly you'll be searching the night before Pesach, you're searching the closet, you see a chocolate wafer, right? The wafer is chametz, right? It's like pure chametz, right? Thank God the kids don't run around the house with food generally, but sometimes kids have whatever snack, they get it in shul or they get it from a birthday party, and they put that bag innocently in their drawer so that they can have it at a time of their liking, and then you forget about it, and then it's just sitting there in that drawer, and it could that's chametz. So that's why we search. Now, how do we search for chametz? We search with a candle. Many people have the custom of having a special feather that you can feather and sweep up, which you can use today. You don't need to use necessarily a candle. Once that was the only way. Today, you can have a nice, powerful flashlight and check. The idea is like this. And you wonder, let me just turn on the light and it's fine. What do I need a flashlight? So I'll tell you why, from a very practical standpoint, is because when you have light, you don't see every nook and cranny. When you turn off the light and you put on a flashlight, that's what you focus on. You focus on what you're able to see. Because when the light is on, right now in this room, there are 100,000 things I can look at. But if I have a flashlight and I'm pointing the flashlight on you, I see you. And I move it on, and so on and so forth. You look in the nooks and the crannies. You look, open the drawers. Now, there's some people, I remember when we were kids, we would take different rooms and we would divide them up in the house, and each child would search a different room. You don't need to check every single pocket of every single pants and every single sweater and you check the general area where chametz might be, where any leavened items might be, right? Nobody's putting cookies in their pocket. Okay? Dave, is there something you want to share with us, Dave? Right. Hopefully nobody's putting cookies in their pocket. Right. So you're saying the double stuffed Oreo cookies? Oh, nice.
Never have in our house.
They are kosher. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. How about those the peppermint ones for the holidays? They have this peppermint. It's amazing. Either way, so I'm on a diet now, so I can't. Okay, but either way, so we have to check the nooks and crannies. But our sages tell us far more than that. What's the idea? We just cleaned it. We spent time. We went through every drawer. We went through every closet. We went through everything. We cleaned it. Why do we need to check it now? Our sages tell us that what we do physically, we try to do spiritually as well. When we're cleaning our physical home, when we're cleaning our physical lives, we have to also clean our spiritual lives. And before we enter into this time of absolute connection with the Almighty, we have to make sure that we clean out all of our little nooks and crannies within inside our hearts, inside our actions, and think of all of the things we may have done wrong. And this is like a little time to reflect in the darkness, when we're going through each room. Think of our own lives. Is there someone I may have hurt? Is there something, a mitzvah that I perhaps neglected, that I should have been doing better? This is a time, Pesach, to clean out all of the arrogance from ourselves. Maybe, right? And it's an important reminder that Pesach is a time of unity between the Jewish people and God. And if you think about it, if God was able to take if the Jewish people merited to be taken out of Egypt because of the Seder 3,300 years ago, imagine what merits we can bring upon ourselves by the Seder that we have in our own homes. If they merited to be taken out of Egypt, out of slavery, from 210 years of slavery, because of how they performed their Seder, imagine how much merit, how much goodness we can bring into our own lives by performing the Seder properly. The more we prepare for the Seder, the more uplifting it'll be. To look through, go online, go to artscroll.com, go to Amazon, and look for Haggadahs. Look for insightful Haggadahs. They're answering the questions. See, there are hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of Haggadahs. I brought these as a sampling, that everyone can see just a few of the Haggadahs that I love. Again, this still stays my favorite. This is still, the youth Haggadah is still my favorite. I love the pictures. It's great. It's great. Okay, so we spoke last week about the order of the Kiddush. We start with Kaddish. Urchatz, we wash our hands. We spoke about that as well last week, is that we're washing away. Why do we have to wash here? I mean, it's we don't have this any other meal in the entire year. We don't wash to eat vegetables. Now, the halacha says that if you're eating wet vegetables, you should wash your hands. But we don't see it as being built into our meal, except for the Seder. So we wanted to suggest last week that the reason we wash our hands to begin with is to wash our hands from the arrogance. When you're about to eat, you're like, oh, look what I've accomplished. Look at my earnings. Look at how I'm able to buy good food. Wash away that arrogance. Right? Realize that everything is from Hashem. So I think that's why we put specifically in here, in the Seder, we put a special washing of the hands. We give it the excuse of eating the vegetables just for the purpose of having and the ability to wash away that arrogance. Because the whole Seder is about the Jewish people recognizing their place. The matzah, what's the whole matzah? The matzah is devoid of all arrogance. It doesn't have that puffiness. It doesn't have that, look at me, look how great, look how beautiful I am. No. It just is. It just is. It's matzah without the flavor. I had a conversation this week with someone about what is the difference between someone who is a pleasure seeker in food, someone who's a glutton, someone who just wants to eat more delicious food, and someone who's just like, I need to eat for the sake of eating, and it happens to be delicious. Great, everyone likes delicious food. But what happened? So my grandfather would say the difference between someone who's always running after their desires versus someone who's not is what happens if the food is not good. It's just as nutritious. It just doesn't taste as good. Right? So you don't kvetch about it. You just eat it. That's someone who's not gluttonous. That's not someone who's right. But someone who's like, oh, it's disgusting. I can't touch it. Take it away. I don't want it. Right? That's someone who may have a little bit of an issue there. Right? And you know what? Dave. Right? That's
You're not the only one.
We need to remember that even if it's not delicious, and even if it's not, we have to realize that it's nourishment. It's nourishment. And if it's nourishment, it shouldn't make a difference. Okay, so sometimes it tastes better. Sometimes it tastes worse. It's fine. I do remember, though, that when my wife and I were newlyweds and I came home and my wife she was like, a little hesitant. Like, what's going on? Is everything okay? She says, yeah, I prepared food and I kind of burnt it. It was like 3 weeks after we got married. I was so excited. I like burnt food. I really do. Not burnt charcoal, but I like it when it's like very well done. You can ask crispy. That's for me. That's like the best. Like no. If it'll be like even my steak, you make it rare. I can't touch it. It's like raw. Like it's still breathing, right? No. Give it to me well done with a crisp. Oh, love it.
Well done? You mean like no pink inside?
Yeah, no pink.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
That's what you in Texas.
So I told my wife, and she thought that she thought I was just being nice, a newlywed. Oh, he's just being nice and kind. I said, no, I'm serious. She called my mother and she said, I feel terrible. I burnt his food. She's like, oh, you made him so happy, I'm sure. Like, so she realized that's what, like when my mother used to make food and the bottom would be all burnt, I would scrape it off. That was the best part of the food. Either way, how did we get there? We were talking about arrogance, right? The food is there to nourish us. Food is there to nourish us, right? Matzah is saying, take away all of that arrogance. There's no flavor to matzah. Now, again, I happen to personally love matzah. I love matzah, but it's still because that's what it is. So you might as well make the best of it, right? But typically, people don't go to the store and say for Hanukkah, you know what? I'm going to treat my family to some matzah, right? That's not what they're looking for, right? It's for the barbecue.
I do that.
Oh well.
Best breakfast is fried matzah.
All right.
That's the best,
So
especially if it's extra crispy.
I hear you. So I'm opening up a new Haggadah here that I just purchased yesterday, and we're going to see how he discusses karpas. Okay, why do we eat karpas? Karpas is the vegetable that we dip into salt water. Why do we eat karpas? He brings 4 reasons here. Okay, number 1. Eating a vegetable at the beginning of the meal stimulates the appetite. This is a practice of free men. Right? What do we do when we go to the restaurant? We go to the restaurant. You have an appetizer, right? Or salad, right? It builds up your appetite. It gets you, you're a free person. You want to build up your appetite. That's number 1. Typically, you don't dip it in salt water, but that's a different thing. Karpas follows the sanctification of Kadesh and the ritual purification of Urchatz. This hints at the Jew's obligation to uncover the hidden spark of holiness that is buried deep inside him. Just as the vegetable eaten for karpas grows buried in the earth, like potato, right? Grows buried in the earth, yet merits having a blessing made over it at the Seder, seeing how a lowly vegetable can be elevated to such a sanctified status can inspire a person to rise from a lowly level and reach heights of holiness. You know, this little potato grew under the ground. It's like lowly as can be. Yet, we put it on our holy Seder table of royalty. Guess what? There's no giving up. There's no one saying, me, forget about it. I'm a lost cause. There's no such thing as a lost cause. Even a potato can make it on the Seder table, right? Every person. We eat karpas as a deviation from normal practice to prompt the children to ask, why are we dipping a vegetable in salt water and eating it before the meal begins? That's a lot of the things that we do so that the children should ask. Now, we were talking about this, Dovi and I were talking about this, like it's a little weird that the reason we do all of these things is so that the kids should ask, and yet we tell the children in school, we prepare them for the Seder, we give them all of the prep, telling them that why do we do it so that the kids should ask. So if you prep the kids to say so that the kids should ask, they don't ask because they know why. So that we should ask. You understand? It doesn't, right? So I don't understand. It's counterintuitive. Why are we telling them? It should just be like, okay, have a nice holiday, and then the kids go home without having known anything, and they're like, what's going on over here? Why is everything different tonight? And then they can ask those real questions and have it genuine. Now, that doesn't mean that the kids can't ask it having known it, but it's an interesting thing. The 4th reason given over here is the vegetable used for karpas grows in the earth, alluding to the lowly status of the Jews in Egypt, where they were trampled upon like earth. All right, so this is a reminder of how low we were in Egypt. It was, think about no freedom. Think about no freedom. I was thinking about this recent, now no politics, please, just a warning, right? No politics, but think of this whole thing with Ukraine and Russia, right? They are dealing with the inability of making their own. They can't just go to the movie theater. They can't just. They're being bombed, right? They are, even if they're still living there and they still have food, they don't have the freedom to choose. That is the greatest gift. The greatest gift that a human being has is the freedom to choose. And slavery means when I don't have freedom. Someone who's an addict is suffering. You know why? Because they can't choose. They're suffering. And they need Dr. Rosenstock to help them get their free will back so that they can make choices and they can make good decisions. But that's a slave. They're a slave to their addiction. They're a slave to whatever it is that the substance or whatever it is that they're. So karpas, we understand, is a vegetable, a lowly vegetable, reminding either the Jewish people or that everyone has a chance. Everyone can become great. Okay. Any questions thus far? Okay.
Actually, I was always told that you get eat the vegetable with the salt water to remember the tears of the slaves.
Oh, very good.
That's
Look
what
at
I
that.
was always taught, that's the reason we do that. is to
Beautiful.
remember
The tears of the slaves.
and the oppressed and
Amazing. You see this? We have a scholar in our presence. Beautiful. Thank you. We also have. There's an amazing story here. Should I tell you the story? It's a great story.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you?
Okay. Anybody ever heard of Rabbi Chanan Wasserman? Rabbi Chanan Wasserman. Rabbi Chanan Wasserman was a student of the Chofetz Chaim, and he had a yeshiva in Baranovich. Baranovich was in Poland. Today it's part of Belarus. It was a yeshiva of brilliance. It was, in fact, the Chofetz Chaim on Purim once had a visitor. It was Rabbi Chanan, his student. Rabbi Chanan came, and he asked the Nusa where they're holding. And I think in the tractate they were learning there was 110 pages of Talmud, and they were only up to page 80 in the Talmud. And the Chofetz Chaim started yelling at him. He says, they're up to page 80. They have another 31 pages to go. How are they going to finish before Pesach? They have to finish the trek. And you know what it is to learn 110 pages of Talmud,
Yeah.
right? And you're talking about not learning it in an hour on Daf Yomi. We're talking about learning it the way they learned it in Baranovich, right? So it was a place of master Talmudists and great scholars. So Rabbi Chanan Wasserman multiple times came to the United States on fundraising trips. And in fact, right before the Holocaust, he was in the United States, and people told him, there's a war breaking out in Europe. You maybe it's not a good idea for you to go back. He says, I can't leave my students. I can't leave he went back, and his last lecture he ever gave was in a city called Slobodka, in the home of my grandmother. He was visiting in Slobodka. He gave his last lecture to his students right there in her dining room, and he spoke about Kiddush Hashem, sanctifying God's name. Because why were they being taken out to be killed? Because they're Jews. There's no greater sanctification of God's name than dying as a Jew, because you're a Jew. And he gave the class of teaching his students what it means to die as a Jew and to sanctify God's name. The German soldiers came, gathered them up, and took them to the 9th Fort where they were shot and killed. And on the way, they sang the song of Ani Maamin, I believe. Throughout the camp, they were escorted by these German animals and taken to their death, but they were still singing Ani Maamin throughout the camps, throughout the entire ghetto. They walked singing. And my grandmother's there, she witnessed it. An amazing thing. So Rabbi Chanan, on one of his trips, went to go meet with a man named Philip Goodstein. And he owned a very successful coat factory in Manhattan. So on one of his trips, he came to raise money for his yeshiva. And Philip Goodstein was no longer a religious Jew. And he says, can I please speak to Mr. Goodstein? Mr. Goodstein. And they said, I'm sorry, he's not in at the moment. He'll be in later. But you need an appointment. So Rabbi Chanan Wasserman said, when will he be back? He'll be back at 4:00. Okay. 4:00, he comes back and he says, can I please speak to Mr. Goodstein? I told you need an appointment. You can't just come and visit Mr. Goodstein, the CEO of this massive coat factory. You can't just see him. He says, well, I'm waiting for him. And he sits there in the waiting room to see Mr. Goodstein. Now, Mr. Goodstein has no idea who's waiting for him. You know, you're talking about one of the greatest Torah scholars of the generation. And and this lady walks into Mr. Goodstein's office and she says, you know, someone's here for you. A rabbi is here for you. He says, who is it? He says, tell him that it's his classmate from 50 years ago. So he comes out. He says, I remember you. I'm not sure if I remember you. Right? He says, yeah, of course. I remember this and this teacher and that. You remember? Oh, wow. It's like it brings him back 50 years earlier when they were classmates. Like, I can't believe it. Come inside my office. I'm so sorry they let you wait. And he says, no, okay. They finished schmoozing. So what do you want? See, he says, I have a coat, and one of my buttons fell off. And I know you have a coat factory. So I figured, is it possible, maybe, if I can ask, if it's not too difficult, if you can sew the button back on? So he says, Rabbi, you're kidding me. You didn't travel all the way from Europe on a boat, right, to come here to my coat factory so that I sew on a button. He says, no, I really, I'm missing the button. If you can match the button and you can put the button back onto my coat. He says, Rabbi, I'll fix the coat, but tell me why you came. See, he says, do you think that you came to this world all the way from the heavens, the highest of heavens? You came to this world to make coats? That's why you came here? You have a hard time thinking that I would come all the way from Europe to fix my coat? Of course, we came here to do great things. We came here to do great things. And of course, he solicited him for his institution, his yeshiva. And according to the story here, he says that he gave him an astronomical sum, enough to cover the yeshiva's expenses for a full 2 years.
Wow.
Right? But more than anything, the story tells here about Mr. Goodstein, is that Mr. Goodstein realized that he came here for a much greater purpose than making coats. Right? We sometimes get carried away with our lives. We get carried away and we become enslaved to our job, to our career, to our dreams and our hopes. And we lose sight of why we traveled all the way from the highest of heavens, from the holiest place on earth, God's throne. We came here for what? Right? We came here to connect with the Almighty through the challenges that we have here in this world. And I think it's the most important part of the entire Seder, is not only, all the details. There are a lot of details, and we're going to go through them all next week. So get ready, buckle up, because next week we're going to go all the way from Yachatz, from breaking the matzah, through Magid, through Rachza, Motzi, Matzah, Moror, Korech, Shulchan Aruch, everything. If we have to add another class, we'll do that. We have to go through everything. But more than anything is to make sure that throughout the Seder we recognize our real purpose. Take a zoom out, recognize, 1 second. Do you know the most celebrated holiday of the Jewish people today? Even you have people who don't know anything, who don't know Torch, or aren't members of any synagogue.
It's Pesach.
Pesach,
Mm-hmm.
the Seder.
See?
The Seder. It's something. It's important to reconnect as a people, to reconnect as an individual, and to realize we're here for a greater purpose than just running after our coats and running after our buttons and running after all of our physical things. It's to realize that we're here for a purpose. And that purpose is to bring God into this world. Right? So Hashem should bless us all. We should all merit to be vessels through which Hashem comes into this world. It's one of the things, if you look at the Aleinu that we say every single day, 3 times a day, it says, which has been taken out of context. It says, Litaken olam b'malchut Shaddai. The world has taken it as tikkun olam. What does tikkun olam mean? To fix this world. Now, the world is not broken. The world is not broken. It's to fix this world with godliness. Bring godliness into this world. That's what we're here to fix. The world is living in a profane way. The world is living in a vulgar way. The world is living with all of the mishagas and all the nonsense. That's what we're here to fix. Yeah, it's nice to recycle. That's not, the world doesn't need fixing. The world needs godliness. And that's what we're here to bring. And around our seders, respectively, each one of us, to bring God's presence, to bring in the consciousness of, something that I'll add to my life this year, something that I can change, something that I can improve in my godliness in my day-to-day life. That's what we're here for. So Hashem should help us that all of our seders should be uplifting, elevating, holy, and hopefully be a huge inspiration for all of those who are at our seders and those who hear about our seders, and to each and every one of us ourselves.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rabbi.
They start coming back.
Who's that?
You know, my wife has a book club.
Oh, of course they can start
When
coming
she
back.
talked to one, they often get 100 people.
Wow.
But anyhow, she won't have 100%. But they meet, I think, on the fourth
Thank
Monday. The fourth Monday.
Fourth Monday? Yeah, it should be fine. Should be fine.
I guess I'll have to call and make sure.
Yeah, so she should just schedule it with the.
Okay, Dobby, come here a minute.